What a solid win for the Toronto Raptors last night. They won 109-100 against the Washington Wizards. They are currently on a 5-game win streak. You are watching Raptors Today. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Paul Jones and, of course, Sherman Hamilton. Guys, let's break it down because, Jonesy, I think that Fred VanVleet took it maybe a little bit to heart when we said that Gary Trent Jr. and how impressive he was in the last game with 26 points in 43 minutes, but now he dropped 33 points in 43 minutes this past game. So I would love to hear your thoughts on his performance last night.
I think Fred is really kind of figuring it out. He needed some time with his team to figure out who needs the ball where, how to get things involved. He's been on a championship level, and he's trying to drag these guys there and kind of make sure everybody's in the right spot. He's helping to solidify and define roles as well. And then, as we saw last night, he looks for his scoring. In a win and a loss earlier this year, Fred had a career-high 17 assists, but he had 8 turnovers. He wasn't pleased about that, even though he had 17 assists. And over the course of this 5-game win streak, his assist-to-turnover ratio is about 3-1, which is really good. When you think about Kyle Lowry down in Miami right now, his ATO is about 3.32-1. So Fred's really in the ballpark. I think he's doing a terrific job running his team, looking for his scoring, and just being the calm in any kind of storm that comes up for the team.
Absolutely. We also have to talk about OG Anunoby because he had another solid night, again performing. He's really finding his legs this time. 21 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, Sherm.
Yeah, you're right. And it's interesting to watch OG operate. Early in the game, he didn't do much. And then there's just a switch that he turns on and he attacks, he shoots the ball well. He made so many different plays. I thought he attacked the basket. He attracted 2 or 3 defenders, found teammates. But his physicality, when he's going to the hoop, he's taking people with him. He's going through them. He's going over them. He just has that mentality. But the finesse on the perimeter is very nice to see as well. That step back 3, the side step 3, the ability to put it on the floor, get into the mid-range, elevate, knock down a jump shot. So OG is showing the ability to implement himself and kind of put his imprint on the game at moments that he feels he can. And that's a really interesting dynamic to see from a guy who's taken that next step right in front of our eyes.
Absolutely. He's not afraid to make and create contact on the offense, which says a lot about how strong he is of a player taking it to the rim. But, Jonesy, if you told me that a man by the name of Safi Mihailuk would be starting on the Raptors this year, I might have thought, are you okay, Jonesy? But Here he is, and he's playing well.
He is. Over the last couple games that he's been inserted into the starting lineup, he scored about 11.5 points. So he's in double-figure scoring. He's a guy known for shooting the ball. He's shooting about 54% from the floor and 50% from deep. So he's doing what he does best. And then it's the other things, in my eyes, that are keeping him on the floor he's doing well. He's aggressive. He's scrappy defensively. Hands fitting in with the rest of the team in terms of defending, being active in the passing lane. And then he's rebounding in a sneaky way, too. He's got 9-10 rebounds in a couple games. He's just not hurting you out there. He's very, very solid. And I think Nick Nurse, again, you coach by feel, did a great job putting him into the starting lineup. He cuts well without the ball. His presence standing out on the perimeter, you got to honor his 3-point shooting. It creates driving lanes and helps the spacing. So I think it was a great job by Nick to put him in, and Svi's certainly not letting him down.
You got to love to see that. But, somebody else who's also stepping up in the subtle ways is Khem Birch. Precious Achiuwa, I think we can all empathize when a player's having a bit of a rough stretch. He's been playing okay lately, but Khem has really stepped up in that in that space. And, I would like to see how they play together as well. What are your thoughts on the two of them?
Well, it's going to be interesting. They both had different styles. And, as you mentioned, Precious has struggled a bit on the offensive end, kind of looking like he's looking for stuff a bit too aggressively sometimes, and it takes him out of the flow and takes his team out of flow. Khem Birch comes in, and he's a calming presence. Khem Birch is going to be the recipient of passes. He's going to catch the ball. He operates so well in that short roll. Around the broken line, under the free throw area, he floats it, he kicks it out. He understands how to make decisions in that situation. Sets good screens, he'll rebound, he'll defend. So both guys are bringing different things. Precious will run the floor, he'll play more of an athletic up and down game. So Nick Nurse has that at his disposal. Having said that, Precious really has to understand he has a valuable spot on this team as long as he's not forcing his offense. It's going to come to him. kind of take a look at Kem Birch, how Kem Birch is just getting into the flow and not trying to rush things. I think Precious could learn from the way Kem Birch approaches a game.
Absolutely. Now, few surprising stats, maybe one in particular that really stands out to me, guys, is that the Raptors are leading the league in offensive rebounds without a 7-foot player. Sure. Make sense of this for me, please.
Well, I mean, we all played. We understand that rebounding is more than about the will than the skill. And I think the size of the player doesn't really impact the ability to rebound. We all know that. Having said that, what we're seeing is a collective effort from all 5 players on the floor to be involved on the glass. And I think the best thing about it is they're rebounding well on the offensive end, but they still have defensive balance. They're not giving up that much transition opportunities. When your guards go in there and rebound, if you don't have good defensive rotations, you can get caught naked on the back end. But the Raptors have been able to be aggressive from all spots on the offensive glass, create second chance opportunities, and yet still get back defensively. It's a great balance, but this team has been challenged to rebound better. Like you said, there's no 7-footer out there roaming around. So how do they do it? They do it by committee, and they're all committed, all 5 guys on the floor.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, our tallest player for the Toronto Raptors is 6'9", but when we think about also heart and hustle on this team, Fred VanVleet comes to mind, of course. But then this past season, Gary Trent Jr. took another stride in his game on the defensive end. I would say, he's leading the league in deflections, Jonesy.
Well, like Sherm said, defense is a measure of effort, like rebounding, and you see the effort from Gary Trent Jr. and he looked around. I'm sure he looks around and he sees all these long athletic guys and knows that they're going to be in the mix in terms of getting deflections, rebounding, recovering loose balls, and hey, he's a professional. He's a competitor. He sees that too. So, and I love his effort, and he's in the passing lanes, hands active. I just think of the Orlando game. They call the timeout. They get the ball into Cole Anthony. He knocks it away. And not just knocks it away, he chases them down. And there's a follow-up to it. As Sherm's always talked about this with him, and we see it, the multiple effort defensively after the deflection. And this is something that has permeated the entire team. It's infectious. It's contagious. One guy gets it. And we always talk about that ball, that 50-50 ball. It's going A to B. All of a sudden, it gets deflected. It gets knocked offline. Now it's anybody's. So if you're the Toronto Raptors, you have to love that from Gary Trent, Fred VanVleet. And as I said, it's permeating and pervasive throughout the rest of the team.
Absolutely. And can we have a Raptors Today show without talking about Scottie Barnes? I don't think so.
No.
Absolutely not. He's leading the league for the rookies, in scoring and in rebounds, Sherm.
He's special. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this coming into the season, but there's no question.
Wait, Messiah and his team might have seen it.
I think they saw potential. I don't know if they saw this kind of immediate potential. Having said that, he's been phenomenal. And, you really notice it when he's not on the floor. And that's the interesting thing. As a rookie, not being out there, you can see there's junctures in the game where you can get the ball to Scottie Barnes, the rookie, and he could make something happen in this scenario. So it's interesting to see his impact, but, he's banged up a bit right now. The challenge is going to be to hit the ground running again when he gets back into the lineup. And that's something that, as a rookie, we see this trajectory. Well, he's going to flatten out. He's going to have his hills and valleys in the season. Yeah. This is one of them. So I'm interested to see how quickly he'll get back to what he's been for the Raptors so far. But I'm confident the young man has talent, and his upside is unbelievable.
Absolutely. I can't wait till he takes the floor again after his thumb injury. But we're going to hear now from head coach Nick Nurse as well as Fred VanVleet.
Well, I think that first of all, they're taking some of the basic stuff of just ball pressure and playing hard. It covers a lot of ground defensively. And I think that guys like Gary and Svi and Kem's doing a good job again, but Scottie likes to guard. And I think it's getting contagious a little bit where they know you got to kind of guard hard your guy. And that'd be my first thing. I think they've learned pretty quickly about some more of the help rotation things and some of the shot contest rotations and things like that pretty quickly. But again, a lot of that's just firing in and firing out with as much energy as you can. Yeah, I mean, we're playing really, pretty consistently. We're playing hard on D, and our offensive execution's gone way up, I think. And not only that, we've had a bunch of shot makers too, right? I think from Fred to OG to Svi to Gary, those guys have, made plays on their own a little bit and made shots, to kind of keep the offense moving. That's good because that's quite a few guys. And, there's other guys chipping in too, bucket here, bucket there, tip in here, tip in there. But the defense has been pretty consistently, they've been playing pretty hard at that end. So we've given ourselves a chance each night with the combination of those two things.
Well, I think first and foremost, it takes a lot of open-mindedness. And I think the guys that we're plugging in have no choice but to be open-minded or they wouldn't be playing. But again, give them credit as well, like Svi, Precious, Gary, Kim, Delano, all of those guys. They spent a lot of time this summer and this fall working with the team, but they've been on point and they've been locked in. So we got a good group in terms of being on the same page, and I'm sure it's fun to play with as the point guard, and we just have a good flow right now, chemistry between the practice, shoot around game plan to the floor. Like there's not much drop off. Yeah, I'm probably the latter. But again, I'm a stickler, I'm a jerk. I'm that old angry man, if you can believe that, at 27 for this team. So I'm kind of the guy that's barking, all day. But these guys are playing their butts off and they're playing hard and we're flying around and we got to keep it going.
Drake, none of you guys saw, I saw all over my timeline, posted that he wants a WNBA team in Toronto. So let's talk about it. I'm going a little bit of a rant right now, so don't mind me. Brace yourself. Brace yourself. But I would love to honestly hear your thoughts as well, and please be open and be candid about it, because I think it's an important subject to talk about. Having the absolute pleasure of hosting a WNBA show, Canada's first women's basketball show this past summer on NBA TV Canada, Swish. I had the absolute privilege of meeting people in front and behind the camera who really are passionate about the WNBA and want a team, and they see a team here. So I appreciate the fact that Drake really punctuated the voice of those people. Now, I'm the type of person that, of course, I'm emotionally invested in this. I played women's basketball myself, so I want to see a WNBA franchise here, but I truly believe that stats and numbers say a lot, and women's sports is something that you have to invest in, okay? It is a long-term goal, not necessarily a short-term goal. And if you look at the long-term numbers so far, and how the viewership is rising, how the fandom is rising in the league across. In the pandemic, when all the major men's league sports took a dip in viewership, the WNBA increased by 64% viewership. That's quite the difference. Now, that might be, it's just the pandemic. Maybe the viewership's gonna change when sports starts to normalize itself or equal back out. Well, this past season, this past 2021 season for the WNBA, they saw another jump by 51% increase in viewership. Now, these numbers are from Disney, that's ESPN, that's CBS, that's ABC, right? The WNBA hoodie was it was the #1 top sold item on Fanatics. And so that just goes to show you the demand for this team. The average number of views per game this past season was 306,000. And that's just the United States. The WNBA is actually broadcasted globally, and lots of people that I personally know in Europe, in Africa, they've watched the WNBA across the world. So there is appetite for it. There's only 144 spots currently for players in the league, and there's so much room for growth, and I think Toronto would be a great market because we know how our fans get behind the teams here.
Savannah, you sound like a young Paul Jones who was passionate about the NBA coming to Toronto years ago, and I agree with you. I would say the biggest thing is, and since Drake's the one that put it out there, maybe he can throw some of the cash up. It's all about the business plan and the sustainability. And, you look at when the NBA came to Canada in both Vancouver and Toronto, it had to gain its footing. It was fledgling. It was neophyte, and people had to kind of get behind it. I think they've got that part of it covered. People will get behind it. And then it's about having a sound business model to help it go forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a misbelief out there that because the WNBA does not bring in the numbers that the NBA does or something like that, that the product isn't good. And I think there's got to be a real separation here, understanding that the product is good. There are other ancillary things that create issues in terms of bringing a WNBA team to Canada. As you mentioned, it's got to be a long-term investment. Yes. You've got to understand it's not about the now, it's about what it's going to do in an ongoing way to our society in general. But there's no question a WNBA team should be in Toronto, without a doubt. Just have to have the people involved that understand, as Jonesy said, a business plan that's going to involve a longer idea or a longer vision of what this can be down the road, and the impact it will have while it gets there.
Well, and here's the other thing I would say with that too. The WNBA is in a perfect time in terms of its time of the year. There's not much competing with it, and they are going to get the viewers. They are going to get the attendance. And that's something I think that people have to consider too going forward. Be careful that when it does get going, you don't want to go too far with it and start trying to overlap into other people's areas. You don't want to fight the NFL. I mean, the NBA doesn't want to do that. You see the NHL kind of maneuver their way around certain things. So I think it's in a perfect spot right now, and this is the best time to jump on it. And look, I know for a fact years ago, there were lawyers in Toronto that put a major proposal on the table about bringing a WNBA team to Toronto. It wasn't quite there yet, so they backed off. And again, as I said before, these are sound business people. If it's going to work business-wise, people are going to jump on it. So I'm sure it's being refined as we speak.
Absolutely, and timing is so crucial, and when you're making business and strategic decisions like that as well. But Nick Nurse did share his thoughts, so we're going to take a listen.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. I think Toronto should have a team, right? I think basketball, obviously, all of us living up there know that this is like a golden age. The number of people playing, the amount of talent pouring out of a lot of cities up there, both, boys, girls, men, women, everything. And I think the women should be represented in Toronto with the WNBA team. I would imagine it'd be wildly successful. So go Drake.
Now, Nick Nurse said it would be wildly successful, but as we mentioned, it's all about investment. And I think it's a bigger investment in also the talent that we currently have here in Canada. The women's game has grown so rapidly and massively, and like you look at players who are currently in the WNBA, like Kia Nurse, like Natalie Achonwa, Bridget Carleton, the list goes on. But then I also think, having known a lot of these women, they play overseas. And European basketball is huge for the women's game. They get paid, like some players even get paid millions of dollars out in Europe. And so I think about investing in women's sports, it does have a payback in the long term. I think of the upcoming players such as Shayna Pellington, such as Aaliyah,
By the way, Shayna Pellington's my niece.
I know, that's why I threw her in there.
We're not going to throw her out there and not make the connection here.
Absolutely. That's exactly why I looked at you. I'm like Shayna Pellington. So I think that, if you bring a lot of the talent that we currently have in Canada back home to Toronto, they would love to play for their home team right on home soil as well.
Yeah, no question about it. Just look at our national team. Look how good our national women's team has been doing over the years and not getting the spotlight and the credit they deserve. So there's no question, just like the men's side, the women's side, there is a continual funneling of talent that's coming out. It is not going to end anytime soon. And a WNBA situation in Toronto would help illuminate that and put that more at the forefront. But there's no question, there's so much talent on the women's side coming out of our country.
Well, it's the growth of the game, and we saw it when the men's game did the same thing, right? You bring it here, people can actually see these girls, these young girls, I'm talking about grade schoolers, they can actually see it. They can touch it. They can be at a game. They can be inspired. And it's interesting to watch the growth, because you would have your tryout at a grade school for a middle school basketball team, and you might get 10, 15 girls. Now you got 40 kids, 50 kids coming out. The growth of the AAU and the travel basketball. I mean, what's happened in Hamilton, the way the Nurse family has put basketballs in little girls' hands when they're young, this is what happens. So, yeah, it's about growing it from the grassroots and the bottom and funneling the pyramid up to the top. As Sherm said, our women's team, and I'll kind of brag, a humble brag as member of the board, and Sherm, former national team member with Canada Basketball, our women's team has done terrific things. They're looking to get to the next level right now, so it is about building all that, and a WNBA team would certainly help.
I'm surrounded by some important people, eh? One last thing I'll just add real quick is the fact, one word actually, really, Carter effect. Look what that had on the Raptors. Look at that had on the growth of the men's game, of course. And I think you could do the same thing on the women's side. Shout out to my twin sister, Savanna Hamilton, for, of course, killing it out in Britain, being a league leader out there. Today, we're going to look ahead at who the Raptors got next. They have the Cleveland Cavaliers, now Lauri Markkanen, as well as Kevin Love, currently out with league health and safety protocols. Just an FYI, the Cavs are fully vaccinated, so that's just something that they could be cleared by tomorrow night's game. However, we do got to talk about the Cavs' schedule because they had a bit of a rough season in the beginning. However, they've also had some major wins, so it's a team that you don't want to sleep on. They won against the Nuggets and the Hawks, so they're very capable.
They are. Look, back in the day, we used to say good perimeter play, good guard play keeps you in games. Now good guard play wins you games, the way the NBA is going. And I look at their backcourt in Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, two young men that are growing together. They are fiercely competitive and very, very skilled. And when you look at the way they play, the Raptors are going to have their hands full, especially on the defensive end. These guys, they're good with the ball. They move the ball. They play hard. They retreat defensively, and they're in your stuff too. So I think it's going to be a very competitive matchup when you talk about the backcourts. You talked about Kevin Love and Lauri Markkanen out. I know Sherm's going to touch on this, but they play, JB Bickerstaff's playing a little bit differently, playing basically three big guys up front. So the Raptors, again, they're going to have their hands full with this Cleveland team. These are not the old-time Cavaliers that you can just roll in there and say you're going to get a win. And I know we're going to have a packed house because Canadian Kevin Pangos is on their roster.
Yes, he is. Guard play wins game? I thought defense wins games.
Well, guard play keeps you in games, and without some of the defense now, it'll win you games.
Fair enough. Well, Evan Mobley has really shown out as a rookie for the Cavs as well, and his play with Jarrett Allen has also really stood out. But what are your thoughts on the backcourt?
No, the front court in terms of what they're able to do. I mean, Evan Mobley is a very mobile, fluid big man, and you saw him in college, and you saw, he's lanky, he's got pretty good movement, but in an open NBA game, you see how good his movement is and how skilled he is. They signed Jarrett Allen to the big deal because he is a game changer. He can protect your rim. We're seeing him offensively start to make more plays. And you see the making of a team that as they continue to grow, they've got some good staples. Jonesy talked about the backcourt. Now they've got Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen in the front court. It's a young core that you can move forward with. So I just think Mobley's going to have the chance, like Scottie Barnes, to get a lot of reps and a lot of opportunities in multiple situations to continue to grow in this league.
Absolutely. Now you can watch the game tomorrow. That's Friday. It's 7:30. Both listen to it on Sportsnet and watch it on Sportsnet as well. From Alex, Jake, Sherman Hamilton, Paul Jones, I'm Savanna Hamilton. Our editor, shout out to him, Luke, for keeping it real always. Thank you for watching another episode of Raptors Today.